Hey everyone, this is a video on how to replace your rear brakes on a 2001 Honda Accord. Let's get started with the tools you're going to need for the job. Preferably a 4-way wrench to take your tire off, a 12mm socket, a ratchet, and preferably the largest flathead screwdriver you can find. It really needs to be a big one for this job. And a jack. These are an example of the parts you're going to need. These are Duralast Gold pads from AutoZone, $31.99 with a full lifetime warranty, as opposed to $51.99 for not so great pads at Advanced Auto Parts. I'm just saying. Your first step is to take the tire off. This is what it's going to look like when you do it. The first thing you're going to need is your 12mm deep well socket and the ratchet. On the back of it, you're going to notice two 12mm bolts. One that goes right here, and another one that I have the wrench on now. You're going to want to take both of those out. It's going to look like that when you get it out. You might have to force this a little bit, but just put even pressure on it, or even get a rubber mallet or something and knock it down just to break it loose, and then you can take it out with your hand. It's also a great idea to have a really nice set of working gloves and a bucket to do this job. More so the bucket than anything. This is more of a comfort thing, more of a, you're not going to get your hands cut up doing it. But the bucket you're going to need because you want the caliper, this right here, to rest on it and not hang from the brake line. If it hangs from the brake line, you could rip it, and then you're talking about a very big job. So after you get the bolts out, you're going to want to pull the caliper off of the brake pads, which are right here. A good thing to use here is your flathead screwdriver if you're having problems with it, to help wedge it out like that. This is what it looks like once you've got it off. This is your caliper here with the piston inside. This is your rotors or disc, whichever you want to call it. And these are your pads. Your pads are going to slide in and out very easily. You'll probably be able to just take them like that, straight out. As you can see, this one's just about had it. Actually, there's a nick taken out right there. That's what's probably giving me my squeal. But there's one. Remember which side goes on which. And we'll take the back one out now. And that one's pretty well shot too. Notice this one's got a hook on the back of it as opposed to this one not. This is going to be important which one goes where when you put this thing back together. The next step you want to do is you have to turn this piston right here clockwise and screw it back in to the caliper itself. This is not like front brake pads. These are the rear brake pads on a 2001 Honda Accord. Front brake pads, you use a C-clamp and push them in. Simple pressure. Just take the top off the brake reservoir, which you should do as well with this. You should do that first. But this is where your long, big flathead screwdriver is going to come in handy. Now, it's not going to be big enough to fit in between that. They do make a tool that you can rent at AutoZone to do this. Personally, I can use this. I've done it so many times. I can take this, put the pressure on it, hold it over the top of it, and not easily, but with a little coaxing, I can spin it back in. You have to do this step first. Otherwise, you will never be able to get the brake pads back in and back onto the rotor itself. This is what it looks like when the brake caliper piston has been screwed all the way back in. The rubber will be a little weird for a minute, but it doesn't matter because once you put your pads back, put your new pads in here, this will be able to fit over top of those pads. And once you hit your brakes, which we'll get to in a minute, that piston will come back out. So it's not a big deal. This is a side-by-side comparison of the old parts and the new parts. When you reinstall these, you're going to want to make sure that your parts match up identical to what the last thing you used. Case in point, in the box you're going to have 4 pads. The outside pads are identical. That one and that one. These pads, however, are different. Here's the brake pad for the other side. As you can see, the prong is on the other side. So you want to match up your parts exactly so you don't have a really bad day. As you can see, the thickness on a new pad is a lot more than the old one. They definitely needed to be replaced. Reinstall your new pads the same way you took the old ones out. There are little key slots for them to fit in on both sides. They'll just slide right in. After that, you're going to want to reinstall your caliper over top of this bracket and the pads as well. These outside pieces are going to be on the outside of this. Before you do this, you can get some anti-squeak stuff over the counter at AutoZone. It's this little red gel. It does help keeping it from squeaking and all that, but I just don't happen to have any, so I'm not going to put any on this job. This is where your caliper being screwed all the way back in, not just halfway, not just 3/4, but all the way in, is going to come in handy, because if that thing's not screwed all the way in, it's not going to fit over these. Once you get it back on there, you can remove the bucket. This will give you room to work on here. Reinstall the two 12mm bolts in the holes of the caliper in which you took them out of. There and there. You're going to notice that this is going to be spongy on both sides. That's not a big deal. They're designed to be that way. Use your 12mm ratchet to reinstall those. You want to get these bolts snug down tight, but you don't really have to kill it on this. I've got this tightened down to a point right here. About like that. I know it's hard to gauge from the video, but I mean, I'm not like lifting myself off the ground or anything when I do this. Just enough. And it's good. That's it. Put your tire back on and you're done. Have fun.